Hello friends. The 655th day of the war between Russia and Ukraine continues. The commander of the Tavria Group, Tarnavsky, reports that the Russians are continuing active assault operations near Avdiivka and Maryanka, where the largest number of battles are taking place. The infantry storms with the support of armored vehicles. At the end of November, it was reported that Russia began to use less equipment due to heavy rains. Apparently, the ground in the region is already frozen. Russian telegram channels write about the advance north of Avdiivka towards Ocheretine, as well as about the battles in Stepov and the advance towards Novokalinov. This was not confirmed in Ukraine. The speaker of the defense forces of the Tavria direction, Stupin, said that Russia has brought more than 40,000 military personnel to the Avdiivka direction. According to him, the Russians are suffering heavy losses there, but despite this, they are very quickly raising their reserves. Meanwhile, the Russians have entered Avdiivka from yet another direction in recent days, capturing part of the northeastern Dacha zone. The video that appeared showed a tank battle with the Russians, where they had to leave one of the captured buildings. Judging by these frames, the enemy managed to take the extreme positions to the north. In the future, given the ability to hide in basements, it will be more difficult to knock out their infantry. The operational situation on the Eastern Front remains difficult due to the Russian offensive, the command of the Ukrainian armed forces says. The enemy does not stop conducting offensive operations along the entire front, said Commander-in-Chief of the Ground Forces Syrskyi. Judging by his words, we have to strengthen our defenses and conserve ammunition. We have taken measures to ensure the stability of our defense, preserve the lives of our soldiers, and rational use of ammunition, Syrskyi added. At the same time, both sides write about the new activation of the Russians in the Liman section of the Kharkiv direction against the bridgehead of the Ukrainian army on the eastern bank of the Zarabets River. The main battles are in the direction of Terny and Yampolivka. Ukrainian military man Arty Green, who is fighting on the front line, reports that the Ukrainian armed forces are forced to go on the defensive and will have to leave a number of inconvenient positions since the offensive potential is either exhausted or insufficient. According to him, Ukraine and its allies underestimated the preparations of the Russian army, since at the time the Ukrainian offensive began, we had no chance. Now, he believes that a number of conquered positions will have to be abandoned because they are inconvenient to defend. We will be forced to leave inconvenient positions that we have occupied for quite a long time, since the Kharkiv offensive. We will have to leave a bridgehead on the eastern bank of Zarabets and, possibly, on the eastern bank of Oskil. In order to minimize our losses, Green said. Near Bakhmut, Russian troops, as their telegram channels claim, reached the outskirts of Bodanivka. An offensive is also underway in the direction of Grigorivka and Orakovo-Vasilivka in the same direction. On the southern flank of Bakhmut, attacks by Russian troops continue on the heights that dominate the entire area. In general, the strategy of the Russian troops here is clear: to capture the dominant heights to the northwest and southwest of Bakhmut, in order to then develop offensives, pushing the Ukrainian army away from the western outskirts of the city, and reach the line of the Seversky Donetsk-Donbass Canal, where then either take up defensive positions, stabilizing the front, or launch an offensive towards Chasiv Yar. In order to implement the latter option, the Russians will need to bring quite large reserves into battle. In Chasiv Yar, there is a large fortified area of the Ukrainian armed forces. However, the same can be said about other directions of the Russian offensive on the eastern front to Liman, to Kupiansk, to Avdiivka and Maryanka. Even if the Russians are able to capture Avdiivka and Maryanka, for example, then they will have to storm the new lines of defense of the Ukrainian army, which are saturated in the Donetsk region. In general, in the offensive, the Russian army will face approximately the same problems that the Ukrainian army faced during its offensive, adjusted for the fact that Russia currently has air superiority and advantages in the number of shells. And the situation can change only in the event of some kind of technological breakthrough. For example, in the use of drones. And Ukrainian volunteers are already talking about this possibility with alarm. The Russians have overtaken Ukraine in the number of drones by several times, since their production is under the personal control of Putin. And if the situation does not change, then the Ukrainian armed forces will have to retreat tens of kilometers, says famous volunteer Maria Berlinskaya. We wasted time, and if before there was parity, now the Russians have surpassed us many times over. When they work out the automatic control systems for drones, a swarm of thousands of drones will fly at us and we will retreat tens of kilometers in a matter of weeks, she said. She also stated that now it's not even a stalemate on the chessboard, but a moment of losing. I believe that our people are old enough to be told the truth. And this truth should be heard from the Supreme Commander-in-Chief. Where there are no drones, people become expendable. We have reached a point where we are running out of people. And if we run out of people, if we don't save them through technology, we will have to come to the negotiating table sooner or later. This means defeat for us, Berlinskaya said. In the Melitopol sector in the Robotyne area, the Russians are making progress. As the Ukrainian Telegram channel Deep State writes, the situation south of the village is getting worse because our long-term attacks on the many times more numerous enemy in Novoprokopivka will not take place without side effects. Ukraine faces mortal danger if the West stops financial assistance. Zelensky stated this in an interview with the BBC. According to her, in this case, Ukrainians will be left to die. It is very painful for us to see signals that the passionate desire to help may fade. For us, this is a matter of survival. Therefore, it is painful to see, she said, commenting on the situation with the bill to help Ukraine, which was blocked in the U.S. Congress. Well, a little humor. The level of corruption in Ukraine has reduced significantly and the country is now approaching non-corrupt, and therefore rich and safe countries. This was stated by the head of the National Agency for the Prevention of Corruption, Novikov. He argued his data by the fact that since 2010, the number of Ukrainians with experience of corruption has decreased from 60 to 17%. Novikov believes the reason is that Ukraine has created the most modern system for preventing corruption since 2014. I note that in a recent survey, Ukrainians named corruption as the main problem, besides the war. 63% of respondents reported corruption. In second place, not counting the war, are low salaries and pensions, which 46% of respondents complained about. Then there are high utility tariffs, a demographic problem aggravated by the risk of non-return of refugees, and unemployment. Lack of progress on joining NATO is considered a problem by 15% of respondents, and the threat of failure to join the European Union is considered by 8%. Friends, this channel exists solely thanks to your support. If you have the opportunity and desire to support the channel, I will be very grateful to you. Thank you very much and see you in the next video.